Well, hey everyone, my name is Nathan Jones, and if you're new here, welcome. I like to talk about all things movies, specifically Blu-rays, and today we are talking about fall films. So it's not exactly October yet, and I'm sure a lot of you are really antsy in getting into the spooky season, the horror month that's coming up with October. I know I am, and I'm really excited. I've actually been kind of queuing up what I want to watch for October, and there's lots of things to do and a lot of new movies to watch and a lot of classics to rewatch as well. But I wanted to share with you the before times. So before October comes around, there is this month of September, and also even in the month of November, which I like to highlight more for a noir month, but I do like the fall season. So the fall season reminds me of a lot of different things, and last year I actually did make a fall video, and that was a lot of fun, but I wanted to scale things back a little bit. And so what I wanted to do in this video is share 10 films with you that I believe kind of have a fall meaning, at least to me. And these 10 films are a little bit more on the broader side of things, so they're not all boutique labels. So a lot of you probably already have some of these titles within your collection yourself. And so I just wanted to showcase those 10 titles with you. So I decided to split this up into 5 each. So this is like a top 5, no, not really a top 5, just 5 recommendation, 5 movies in both categories. So what are the categories? The first one is more of the fall, the typical fall kind of category, back to school, fall colors. These are the things that I'm kind of looking at. Coming of age, these are the things that I'm looking for with seasons of change. And then within the other 5 films, I'm looking at films that have a toe towards the scary, right? It is creeping towards Halloween. It might not technically be an October film, but it's on its way into October. And so those are the films that I wanted to share with you today. So before we jump into this list, I want to say, what are some of the films that you think of when you think of September or just fall films in general that are kind of outside of the spooky Halloween films that we would get and know and love in October? Tell me some of those down in the comment section down below. I'd love to interact with you. So I know I told you that I wanted to share 10 with you. I'm actually going to cheat and share an 11th film. So the first film I want to mention is one that I actually have recently covered on the channel. So if you want to know more information about that, it is in the link down in the description down below. But I did cover Douglas Sirk's All That Heaven Allows. This is from the Criterion Collection, and this is absolutely a fall film. It is brilliant Technicolor. It is a gorgeous film, and it's all about change, at least in my eyes. And so this is probably one of the films that I wanted to showcase that is more of on the boutique side of things. However, it's definitely super accessible, and it is a great film about the change in society, not just within the context of these two polar opposites of these two different worlds, where you kind of have this social class kind of struggle that we're seeing within in the context of the film, but we are also seeing the seasons around them change. It is a gorgeous film. The production is just immaculate, and Douglas Sirk does a fantastic job in the direction. Obviously, we have Jane Wyman and Rock Hudson as our main characters, and their culture are clashing within the context of this film. But this is absolutely, in my eyes, a fall film. So I wanted to showcase this film real quick. That's just an honorable mention for my fall films. So let's actually now jump into the list. All right, the first film that I want to talk about that kind of is a little bit of adjacent to the All That Heaven Allows film that we just recently talked about, just talking about colors and just this concept of just all of these saturations and the things that are just changing all around us. I want to talk about Amelie from 2001. Now, Amelie is a film that I have not seen in quite some time, but I really want to change that. And I think I might start with that very, very soon. But Amelie is a film that is an absolute delight of a film and really just kind of brings my mood up when I watch it. There are obviously some parts of the film itself that are a little bit challenging, but it is a delight of a film nonetheless. The music soars really, really well. The soundtrack is absolutely stunning, and so are the colors and the performances as well. And Amelie is definitely a film that I think more and more people talked about years ago, but it's not one that's talked about often as much anymore. At least I don't see it. If you have seen it, watch it again. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It is a delightful French film, and it's just perfect for this season of change. So Amelie is my first choice for my fall films. All right, so the next thing we're gonna cover is kind of more of the coming of age films. So back to school. School films remind me a lot of September because I'm back in school. I'm teaching again during this time period. So a lot of these this time period reminds me of those different changes that you'll see within students. And one of the ones that I like to think about that I watched a few years ago is 2016's The Edge of 17. Right here, this has Woody Harrelson as one of our main characters, but he is a teacher of Haley Steinfeld, who is our main protagonist in this film, and she's just kind of just struggling in school, and Woody Harrelson is just one of those teachers that really just speaks to her and really kind of, you know, gives her a lot of shit, to be frank. And honestly, it works out really, really well, and their relationship is such a great dynamic and is such a charming and witty little film that really just kind of pulls on your heartstrings. And it also has Kyra Sedgwick in it as well, and it's just a really funny film. And so if you're in the mood for a lighthearted comedy that has some dark moments in it as well, because like I said, Woody Harrelson's kind of a dick in this movie, but in a really, really wholesome way. So I highly recommend checking out The Edge of 17 if you haven't seen it. It is definitely worth your time and certainly a treat. All right, so the next is another film that has a lot of colors that are absolutely vibrant and absorbent. But the thing is, this is a film that is animated. It's actually a stop-motion animated film, and one that probably a lot of you have seen, and it is 2009's Wes Anderson's Fantastic Mr. Fox. And now this is the Criterion edition right here, another Criterion. This is the last one, I promise. But there also is a normal edition of Fantastic Mr. Fox on Blu-ray Amaray. That's really, really great too. I had that before I picked up this edition right here. But Fantastic Mr. Fox is just one of those films that this is probably one of the most rewatchable Wes Anderson films, at least for me, around this time period, because I just constantly am thinking of this really excellent little fable of a story, and kind of juxtaposing that to a modern problem, and really just taking one of those maybe children's stories that we'd see from Roald Dahl, and it really just bring it to life. And I think this is a really, really fantastic film to really showcase that. And I just use fantastic to talk about the Fantastic Mr. Fox. It really is fantastic, and I definitely recommend it. It's got a stunning cast, and it's got so many people in this film. It's not even funny. George Clooney is our main character in this film. We also have Meryl Streep in it, Jason Schwartzman, Willem Dafoe, Michael Gambon, and Bill Murray, just to name a few people in this movie. I mean, Wes Anderson is absolutely known for having an amazing ensemble cast, and Fantastic Mr. Fox is definitely no exception to that rule. And so anyway, I highly recommend checking this one out. If you don't need to get the Blu-ray edition from Criterion, I'd certainly pick it up in other means. It's certainly worth your time and a lot of fun. So check out Fantastic Mr. Fox, let alone for the fun, silly antics that happens with this journey, but also because the stop motion work is just, you don't see that very much anymore. So certainly check this one out. All right, so this next film is a sports film, and a lot of times around this time period, especially in America, a lot of people think of football. And I'm talking about American football, of course. And a lot of people are thinking about the football season that's just started up. And I am not as much of a football fan. I actually am a basketball fan, and basketball is coming up, not too shortly after in October. But I wanted to cover the Hoosiers, or Hoosiers is this movie with Gene Hackman right here. And I am a big Indiana Pacers fan from the NBA, and so I'm a fan of Indiana just in general when it comes to their basketball program. So the Hoosiers kind of hits home a little bit for me, but it also has Dennis Hopper in it and Barbara Hershey as well. This is a true story. And it's one of my favorite sports films, and I can't praise this one enough. I love how Gene Hackman plays our coach, and really just takes his high school team to the next level, and it is a really compelling drama, and really just showcases Indiana's prowess in basketball, at least just from the high school and collegiate level, that aspects, and then eventually into the pros. I know my Pacers aren't the best, but they are definitely consistent and are good and making the playoffs as much as they can. But the Hoosiers, going back to this movie, it's just one of those films that reminds me of school. It also reminds me of my new interest in sports, and I know this time period for a lot of people is heavily invested with sports and going back to school and seeing those two worlds collide. So if you haven't checked out the Hoosiers, I certainly recommend it. And also if you are into football, American football, check out the slew of American football films. But yeah, just just watch a sports movie if you're interested. The Hoosiers is the one I would recommend. All right, so going back, now we're kind of, this is the transitional film for me into these next 5 films after this one. But this is a little bit fantastical, but also a coming-of-age story. And I'm talking about Danny DeVito, actually, who is starring, directing, and producing this one, or at least I think he did all that. But I'm talking about Matilda right here. This is another Roald Dahl film, so we're talking about two of that author's works as adaptations. But Matilda, man, I love this movie as a kid, and it still reminds me of going back to school. And also the school that they go to that reminds me of my kindergarten school, which is just crazy. It has like this weird built-in wired fence. Kind of reminds me of an old facility, like a prison facility, to be honest. But Matilda is a story right here. We have Mara Wilson, who is Matilda right here, with a great cast right here, with Danny DeVito, who also stars in it, Rhea Perlman, Embeth Davidtz, and Pam Ferris. And it's just such a fun film, and it's so lighthearted, and it has a lot of magic involved to it as well. It's like an acceptance. A little girl with this really crazy talents, and who's just really bright and has a lot of energy, and the people who just try to take that away from her. And so yeah, this is where I'm coming. This is where I'm linking the linkage between this into the October film. So we're getting into more magical worlds as we go along with our fall films. So if you haven't seen Matilda in a while, certainly watch it. If you haven't seen it, certainly check it out. So it's a really, really fun time. All right, going along with these next 5 films, this is my bridge towards the October films. So these are films that I feel like not necessarily are October films, but do lead up into it, and also have some things that are adjacent to October films and to some scary horror films. And honestly, if any of these films I talk about that you watch in the month of October, that's totally fine too. But if you wanted to check them out in September, be my guest. But the first one is a classic from the 80s, and we're talking about The Goonies from 1985. And this is a classic Richard Donner film, executive produced by Steven Spielberg right here. Wow, what can I say about The Goonies? This is a classic film that I have a lot of good memories of with my cousins up in Kansas City. I used to go over to their place, and we would watch this on VHS on repeat in the game room all the time. But The Goonies is a film that actually kind of scared me as a kid, just thinking about sloth. I'm like, it's just, it's a little bit scary, but it's obviously not scary whatsoever. It's just a bunch of kids going on an adventure, getting in trouble, and really just kind of discovering some pretty fantastical worlds. And so that's what The Goonies is really at its heart. And I just really love this movie. And it's a movie that does remind me of the fall in some kind of context. Because, I mean, the setting, it could be like that. So, yeah, it's a stretch, but, hear me out. But seriously, go watch The Goonies again. It's worth your time. All right, so the next film that I'm going to recommend is a Disney film, and this is probably the most colorful Disney film that exists. And now I will say that this is celebrating a holiday that's in early November. So I'm making a stretch here. So you could watch this in November, and you could actually watch it on the Day of the Dead. Dia de los Muertos. I hope I said that correctly. I'm talking about Coco, of course. And Coco is absolutely one of my favorite Disney Pixar films from the 2010s. It's one that has some of the most heart to it. It has all the music in this film, none of it annoys me, which is rare because there's usually a song or two from every Disney film that I'm like, it doesn't really fully hit me. But Coco, that's the exception to the rule. And Coco certainly has a fantastic score and soundtrack to it, and it also has a lot of vibrance to it, not just in the colors, but in the amazing story that's being told in the underworld of sorts, just trying to get family back together. I don't know, it's just something that speaks to me as somebody who lives in a family that is rather independent. We don't see each other too often, but we all are cogs in our family dynamic, and we all love each other, but it's not something that I necessarily see more within the context of my family. We don't see each other that often. So Coco definitely kind of reminds me of something that, like, well, I kind of sometimes wish this dynamic was a little bit different. And then also the times when I do see my family, it reminds me of how much I love them and how much spending time with them really is important to me. So Coco it'll make you cry. That's all I can say, but if you haven't seen it, do it. But if you have, go ahead and rewatch it. And if you want to watch it in November, you totally can too. All right, so next is, of course, you probably guessed it, I'm going to talk about a Tim Burton film. But the most fall-esque Tim Burton film, at least to me, which doesn't go into the horror realm, is the film from 1990. Yeah, 1990. I couldn't remember exactly. Edward Scissorhands. And this is with Johnny Depp right here. We also have Winona Ryder in it. And this is all about suburbia and just a weirdo who lives up on top of the street with his weird bushes that he carves up. But, you know, this is another film that where it's almost like adjacent a little bit to All That Heaven Allows, a little bit with the understanding of, you know, different people in the structure of where you live and the rules and regulations that we have in our societies of outcasts and people that we accept. That's where this hits again. And Edward Scissorhands is just another. It's one of the few Tim Burton films that I really like. I'm not necessarily the biggest Tim Burton fan. You can certainly pick a lot of different Tim Burton films to pick during this time period. But for me, I think I would go with Edward Scissorhands, and it's certainly a classic. And if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor and check it out. If you have, go ahead and rewatch it too. So here we go. Edward Scissorhands is my next pick. All right, so now I'm going to transition to a fantastical film, and a fantastical film that out of all this series, I would certainly say this is the one that definitely feels the most fall, because it's the first in the series, and it's all about school, and it's all about Hogwarts, actually. And I don't think I've talked much about Harry Potter on this channel, but I'm talking about Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or in the UK, I have the UK edition here, the Philosopher's Stone. So this is the first film in the Harry Potter franchise right here, and this is directed by Chris Columbus, who I really like, because he evoked, I mean, I watched this when it came out, and I was young, and I definitely have a lot of memories associated with it, and it reminds me of the fall period, because a lot of the times within the context of this film, just in general, a lot of the events that happen and take place are all fall events, and so it's just, it naturally fits in line with this theme. And I wouldn't necessarily say this is an October film, although there is magic involved. I would certainly say Harry Potter definitely feels like a film that you could watch in September and definitely have a good time with. And honestly, I'm due for a rewatch with the Harry Potter series, and honestly, I'm up for I need an upgrade on the 4Ks. So if does anyone have the 4Ks? If you do, let me know how they are and how they compare to the Blu-rays. I may get that someday. But Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or the Sorcerer's Stone, certainly check this film out, and yeah, it's due for a rewatch. And then last but certainly not least is more of a thriller mystery film, and this can get you into the mood for October, into where you're getting into killer and slasher films and serial killers and things like that. But this is definitely more like the mystery, almost like this potentially could be a November film, right? Into like maybe more of a noir, neo-noir film. But the setting of this film reminds me a lot of fall, and it's certainly one of my favorites from the last few years. I'm talking about Rian Johnson's Knives Out. And Knives Out is certainly a wonderful film about a family of just, they're all awful, to be honest. But it has a really great cast. Of course, we have Christopher Plummer. We have, I'm going backwards, we have Jaden Martell, Catherine Langford, Lakeith Stanfield. We have Toni Collette, Don Johnson, Michael Shannon, Jamie Lee Curtis, Ana de Armas, Chris Evans, and Daniel Craig in a whodunit, right? So this is like an Agatha Christie type film where you're trying to figure out who the murderer is. And I mean, I guess I could have put Clue here as well. That could have been an excellent piece for an October film, or for a September film. See, I don't know where I'm at right now. We're talking about fall films. But Knives Out is certainly one of the more contemporary films that is a lot of fun, and certainly is really rewatchable, even if you know what happens in it. I think it's such super fun film with a lot of really great performances, specifically by Daniel Craig and Ana de Armas. Yeah, and I really just love everybody in this movie. I feel like everyone's just having a lot of fun playing the characters that they're playing. So, what about you? What are some fall films that you would choose around this time period? Not necessarily October films, but films that potentially could go in that direction. I'm definitely curious to know. Let me know in the comment section down below. I also wanted to say thank you so much for checking this video out. I had a lot of fun coming up with these films, and I'm super excited for October, but obviously I wanted to talk about these films first. And also stay tuned. There's a lot of really cool things coming up on the channel, some surprises that I am really excited to share with you, but I'm not ready to share with you yet. I want to say thank you all for watching, you mean a lot to me, and I really appreciate that. Even though I know I'm not always as consistent as I can be, and I definitely overthink things a lot, and sometimes I really just want to hear some feedback, and I don't necessarily get that every time, but I get some people who talk to me, and that really helps quite a bit in the how I'm going with things. But I really wanted to start focusing on the things that I enjoy, and I hope that you enjoy this too. And so I just wanted to say thank you for everybody who has supported me over these years and continues to support me. And I hope you enjoy these choices that I chose for the fall films, and I am excited to hear about yours. Thank you so much for watching. Comment down below, share, hit the notification bell, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. I'm not jonesing around.